Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Kelsey. Kelsey. Clear it out. Thanks for all the support. Yesterday's video, I forgot to look at the title again. I'm up to like 800 views. Cool. I can't believe you guys watched this. It's clear. Okay, false narratives. I'm just kind of shaking up some energy. Sussing through. Getting through all the sus. False narratives come to mind. Something about subjectivity showed up yesterday, right? And these interpersonal experiences, or these experiences that we create for ourselves. I'm trained academically as an empirical-based researcher. Show me the data. Like, objectivity is really important. It's that behavioral side of things, right? Where there's no mysticism, there's no magic. It's patterns and pattern recognition. And so I think it's interesting when people develop these stories or narrative, or they try to persuade or create illusions for things. So we're going to look at discerning false narratives, getting beyond false narratives. Maybe we'll get to figuring out what the false narratives are. What do you believe to be true? What do you believe to be real? Because somebody is creating narratives that are false. False narratives serve to manipulate, distract, deter. Oh, we got the little ones in here. Oh, we got a few of them in here. Okay. So what is the false narrative? Maybe we'll look at that one. Throat chakra blocking. Things not wanting to speak the truth, but here is your sort of truth, or your sort of objectivity, right? Because we can have true about the objective experience, and we can have truth about the subjective experience. I'm not trying to take away from your subjective experience or minimize anything, but, and, alright, let's ground in, and center, get focused. If you're here already, thank you. If you're watching this later, no, you can always reach out. We're going to ground in with intention. They say things are timeless, so let's see what's relevant. Just going into this tiny deck already. Just kind of everything standing up. It's cups and emotions, magical emotions, things trying to play with your emotions. And how easily we are persuaded by the emotions, or influenced maybe by the emotions, because there's a lot of resistance to, let's say, discomfort. You guys are chattery again today. Good morning. It's always interesting when somebody comes on, just mourning, not M-O-R-N, but like the mourning of loss, sadness, because of false narratives, or somebody trying to, it's like somebody trying to paint a picture of you as maybe desperate or false light or dependency. Or it's like somebody depends on this narrative that they've created to distract away from what's really happening. People do this mostly for material, I want to say financial gain, material, financial gain, clout, esteem, power is basically what that is. It's a power trip. Stemming out of ego, and I think, I don't know, I just have this like sense of wanting what they can't have, or if somebody can't have what they want, then they create a narrative about it to make themselves feel better. Oh no, I didn't really want whatever, it's just, she uses the, or like scapegoating, blame, or like there's just this deflection of accountability because of a lack of being able to sit in discomfort. But it's an opportunity being handed over that somebody is resisting. Maybe there's something in that resistance of false narrative too, where it's that okay, so the gaslighting movie is coming up without wanting to go into like the trend of, oh, he's gaslighting me. And it's this insidious story where this man is slowly driving his wife nuts. And he does so by adjusting the gas light, or the height of the gas lamp light, or, adjusting the intensity of the light. So the wife begins to question the lighting. Has the lighting changed? No. It must all be in your head. You're crazy. Or somebody trying to get you to believe this false narrative or this false story. But I feel like even in the maybe not so nefarious side of things, when we are, say, creating stories or creating a narrative to sell something, oh, there's judgment. Again, what's the function? What's the function of that behavior? The Lady card came out again. We're trying to, let's say, unveil the fate or clear the path towards destiny. And if there's a false illusion or a false story or some sort of narrative there, like, those old cartoons or like those old Goofy stories, or like Goofy animation series. I don't know why Goofy's coming to mind, but there's like the narrator who's narrating the story, and then Goofy's going along doing his goofy ass stuff. And somewhere in the relationship dynamic between Goofy and the narrator, there's like a I want to say there's a relationship, but that sounds redundant. But I think this is where it's different for everybody. A good narrator will create the space for the characters to go about their lives, right? And they, in a sense, give an accurate representation of something that's going on to create some sort of emotional bond or emotional connection, say, between the reader, third party, the main character, and then the person telling the story. But there's this question of like, well, why doesn't Why doesn't Goofy just tell his own story? Why is there a narrator there in the first place? When people are direct, or if there's like, I want to say like an emotional confrontation or an emotional exposure, something comes up for somebody emotionally and they have to address it and they have to sit in that discomfort. They will tell themselves stories, or they will create the narrative to make themselves feel better. I mean, we can even look at this throughout human history, like who's writing the history books and who is it meant to favor. Because it's like these stories that were being told, or these things that were being shown, they're not real, but people are believing them to be real. When fish swim near in an ocean vast, prospects are clear for a fortune amassed. If fish swim away, hopes are battered, cheer turns to dismay, and dreams are shattered. So there's somebody creating a narrative or a story to bring in the people. And the identity is so structured on this story with clouds that when, say, that illusion begins to clear away, so does that support, so does that aspect of identity. But there's ships. Ships came up yesterday too, ships and clouds. And here's this false narrative story thing coming up, or here's the, here I am looking out over the ocean, and I see objectively a ship. And I say there's a ship. And you tell me, oh no, that's just a cloud. What is the ship you speak of? Those are just the clouds looking like things. And they create this story of how the clouds are real. But approaching danger, there's that anchor again. Oh, what a weird day. I think it's up to you, up to the researcher, right, to discover or uncover the truth. And I'm thinking of this time where I was inside this building talking to a group of people in an exodus when I was getting ready to leave and walk away from this group of people. But I was telling myself this story. Oh no, it's fine, they would never. Being nice. We're trying to be nice. We're wanting to believe the best in people. And so when I walked out the door and I got to my car, this young guy came out. I didn't even see him in there. I didn't even see him go in. I don't know who this person was. Didn't recognize him. I think he, just wandered in and then overheard, witnessed the situation, and then came out and objectified the situation for me. And, hey, if I were you, I would be leaving too, because you would never believe what these people just said about you as soon as you walked out the door. So that false narrative, or there's this thing about people being nice to your face. Like this mean girl strategy in order to try and get something from you. And it's just so ironic, right? That when we are direct and forward and upfront and honest, it makes some people uncomfortable. because it makes them question this illusion or this story that they have told themselves. Something again about projection. Let's look at our demon of the day, because I think there's like more advice needed here in terms of how do we approach this situation. You know, and I pulled out Tower and I pulled out Snake. Because again, somebody is trying to undermine you through a false narrative, or trying to what's that, like one-upmanship or something I'm feeling, in like a very like passive aggressive mountain. Confront the mountain as you would a fierce foe. To avoid your defeat, strike hard the first blow. Punishment only works full force first time. So it's interesting, in this realm of narrative, the people who think they're trying to punish you by doing something, but ultimately it's not punishing because they're not understanding the function of the behavior that they're... So if you can recognize the pattern, and you can get clear as to what the function of that behavior is. People get so caught up on the behavior. Oh, he's, you know, they're being so nice, or they're doing this, or he... But what is the function of that? Why are they doing that? A lot of people will just settle in this realm of that surface value, face value thing of, oh, they're doing this thing because, you know, they're fitting inside the box and doing the social normative thing. But the charlatan, the charmers, the manipulative ones are going to be the ones that are going to try and make you feel comfortable, so that you don't question the narrative. So if somebody is giving you a narrative that is making you uncomfortable, let's look at what that discomfort is. This clear obstacle is a chance to succeed. Courage and persistence are all you will need. When you're trying to like look behind the veil, or like the Wizard of Oz is coming to mind too, right? Because they believe for so long, oh, the magical wizard, the Wizard of Oz, you know, because, and then they get there, and it's all this illusion, and there's this door and this thing, and you know, you open up and you see what's going on behind, and you go, oh. But this isn't like a Wizard of Oz story. It's like somebody trying to put out a Wizard of Oz story, but what is that? This is the moment for rebirth. Do not be bound by your past. Find yourself in your future. Yesterday was this too. The presence of the past, and we dove into a deck over there. The here and now. So in this moment, in this opportunity for transformation, we're recognizing that there was a story, a false narrative, there's a fiction, and we have to look behind the fiction to see who's writing the story and why. And this is where that rebirth happens. This is where that shift happens, or where the decision or the opportunity to choose a different road, or an opportunity to go beyond the subjectivity and comfort, to extend yourself into an objective experience where discomfort is a norm. And it's not seen as something bad, like growing pains, you know? I think a part of the issue is that masculine side of things wants to be comfortable all of the time. So it looks towards the feminine side of things to make it comfortable, where the feminine side of things has to continuously be in discomfort to make somebody else comfortable. And it's just energetics within, you know, the I wouldn't say bipartisan, but just the paradoxical dynamic of this and holding space for other possibilities. Oh God, sorry. But it's a phoenix card. It's a phoenix rising from the ashes. It's really interesting to see how somebody else interprets you. It's one thing as, say, like a life drawing model. I've done it for about 20 years and have sat for hundreds of people. And I've had hundreds of representations of me. None of them looking exactly like me. It's not a photograph. I mean, even in photographs, there are people who I've worked with who have made me look not like me, and people who have been able to capture like the pure me. But even in that, looking back on something, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you relate to it differently as well, for whatever that's worth. But the point being, it goes to show you that even so people can draw pictures of you and it looks different, and it's supposed to be synonymous with the stories people tell themselves about you, or the perceptions people have. I was watching something this morning about perception, and how people, for lack of context, of how people treat people based on perceived value. It's not based off your value, but off perceived value, and that's where that false narrative comes in, where somebody is objectifying you as an object and projecting a conditioned value based off of what it is that you can do for them. It's a cultural, social dynamic that plays out in so many different ways. It's so normalized that it's become subtle. Is there discord and strife around you? They must be overcome so you can move forward. It's like when there's this story being told about you, but nobody is telling you what character you're playing, but everybody is treating you as if you're this character inside of this story that, I don't know, like you walk into a comedy movie, but they're playing a horror film that you're a part of, and nobody is telling you that you're this person within this horror film, and you play it, and this whole time you're just watching and thinking it's a comedy. Like, this is so funny, this is humorous, that people would even go so far out of their way to create some sort of narrative and some sort of plot line that they can place you in as a greater, larger, like scheme of things. And they do so to function as a means to scare you, but in not understanding the behavioral patterns, it's not scaring you, you're laughing at it, like you find it to be funny. And maybe that's part of this like false narrative thing, is people get really caught up in that identity of, I can't believe they would say such a horrible thing about me. Instead of just like, they said, what? Oh my god. And you believed it? Laughter is the key to manifestation. If you want to dive into intelligence and bolster your IQ, play. But people get so serious about these stories and these identities, and they will go so far as to output or destroy anything that threatens that false narrative. I want to say like social media might be a microcosm of that, but it's not necessarily true for everybody. Some people are very raw and authentic. Some people are very curated. And some people just leave out the details. And some people put in very specific details, trying to portray themselves as a thing. And if you don't know how to read between the lines, or you don't know how to see what's going on, or you're not recognizing the patterns, how would you know you're being manipulated? How would you know what you're being told is true or not? This is where that like take it with a grain of salt thing comes into play. Salt being a purifier and a cleanser. I think we might cleanse this space quite a bit this morning, because there's just a lot of let's go down kind of the rabbit hole of dialectic behavior therapy for a minute. DBT. I did a couple of rounds as an undergrad and did this big long blog on it. I wish I still had it. And so, in the realm of dialectic behavior therapy, what is that? It's the words that we use inside of our brains, right? So how do we talk to ourselves? Learning how to talk to ourselves. And there's this key term in there called radical acceptance. And the people who don't want to accept things, or who don't want to radically accept the negative, or the bad, or the discomfort, or the horrible, or the dark, or the scary, and they just want to live in this light, fluffy, whatever world where everything is great, and everything is perfect, and there's no problems, and there's no issues, and nothing is ever going to make me uncomfortable. That radical acceptance thing can be very challenging, because people don't want to accept certain things about themselves, or aspects about themselves, or certain truths, so they will create this narrative, or they will project these false pretenses upon others in order to I don't know, just make themselves feel better again. And here's a large majority of people walking around in illusion, deluding themselves to whatever, and creating these narratives and creating these stories to justify their behavior, and not wanting to overcome the discord and strife. People not wanting to explore and look for solutions. People wanting to stay in that aspect of discord and contention and conflict, looking like that gray area, looking for some sense of control and domination, or you can't just live in this gray area all the time. At some point or another, you gotta pick one side, or it's this or it's that. It's real or it's false. It's true or it's not. It's on or it's off. It's light or it's dark. And all of this, well, I maybe trying to place somebody or justify somebody's behaviors within this grayscale to like make things comfortable. It's really dangerous. how do we get you out of the gray? It doesn't matter if you're on or off, this side or that side, or left or right, or look at that. That's irrelevant. Pick a side and own it. Pick the left lane and walk in it. Like, this whole, like, stay in your lane thing is really important, because there's a lot of people who don't want to stay in their lane. They want to create this narrative where they can insert themselves in anybody's lane at any point in time or whatever, because it makes them comfortable without any regard for another person's level of comfort. Enemies will not be able to bring you harm. They will find themselves destroyed by the fire of Horus. It's the whole, like, truth comes to light thing. Like, people can try to create a false narrative all day long. Oh, who was I reading about? Somebody in art history. A woman in art history. And there's so many of these stories of women in art history where they've done something, they've made a contribution, and somebody comes along and minimizes it or takes it. Or that woman doesn't get the recognition, somebody else gets it, and then posthumously it comes to the surface that, oh, he didn't ever make that. Like that movie Big Eyes. She was the one that made it. He just took all the credit. He created this narrative, he created this story that he was the one doing the thing, but the whole time he was not. Eventually, that balance will happen. I'm gonna grab this woman's deck, because maybe this is relevant. Give me a second, because I gotta, like, dig it out of the box here. I don't know, this one's fun. Maybe we'll go there. But I think it's important to use the right tools so we get access to the right information. Maybe there's something in the new chapter too. I don't think so today. It's in here. Sorry, I got it at the bottom. Okay. I love this deck. MIT put it together. And I think my favorite thing about it, maybe something to note within this conversation between yesterday's and today's, is this, I wasn't going to say hybridization, but this fusion of the science and the woo. So when we're talking about being objective and objectivity, and breaking out of these false narratives, we're looking for the data. Show me the data, the scientific. Not to say that we can take that emotional stuff and completely disregard it. That's information for us too. We just have to know how to catalog it, categorize it. We have to know what to call it, but we have to remove ourselves from the emotional attachments or the emotional pairing. So that's where people get so caught up, is they pair and attribute some sort of emotion with the object, and then they get this attachment where they create the story that this thing holds this mighty power, like with what is it, oh come on, it's a P word, like where they give you the sugar pill, oh come on, words, a placebo effect. It's the placebo. And I think that's why things like voodoo dolls or something work so well, because in somebody's head it gives them this placebo, or it gives them this false icon. I've got the hermit and I've got the high priestess. When you're in your own space, when you're kind of removed from a social group, like the hermit or like the weirdo up on the hilltop. Maybe we can liken the story to this. So in numerology, the hermit's number 9. So 9 being the apex and the top of this mountain. And so many decks, not this one, the hermit is seen at the top of the mountain. Interesting that this one is going through a CT scan, so although he's a hermit, he's being thoroughly viewed and scanned, and people are trying to figure this thing out from like the bottom level. And if you're down at 1 and you've got to climb all the way up to 9, you're going to hear the lore of 9 at all the channels, and oh my god, the thing at the top and the thing at the top. But until you actually reach the hermit at the top and make the direct connection, have the conversation to get the real truth and experience that apex for yourself, I almost want to say that actualization for yourself, you're never really gonna know, you know. And so many people want to stay down here circulating this telephone game or creating this narrative or creating these stories and this lore about, you know, this one thing up here at the top, which generates emotion, fear, wonder, lust, distrust. Judgment. You know, and people are bowing down to this almighty judgment, this belief system, the narrator, right? People are bowing to the narrator. I want to say the narrator in the story is almost more important than the story itself, but I don't want to like esteem it through importance. More so in like roles. We got this astronomer, Wilhelmina, popped up. Wilhelmina Fleming. Let's see what she's got to tell us about all of this. I want to throw this one out there too, maybe, because if you know of a false narrative and you know something is incorrect and you sit by and do nothing, that makes you a bystander. There was something else too in this realm of like false narratives where this woman was talking about her boyfriend and then like a mutual male friend. And the 3 of them got into this heavy, heated conversation where the male friend ended up getting really aggressive with the woman. And so the woman turned to the boyfriend and was like, are you gonna, you know, defend me or jump in or try to like protect me? This guy's being an asshole and you're not doing anything about it. And this guy's just sitting there like, oh, being a bystander, allowing the let's just say injustice to occur, or allowing this like narrative, or like generating this narrative. Like, I wonder what's going on inside of that guy's mind as he's watching his girlfriend and his friend like duke it out, and his friend is being incredibly disrespectful to the girl, but his instinct maybe, or his impulse or his decision is to do nothing because he's so uncomfortable. And so somewhere in that bystanding, he's creating this narrative inside of his head, creating this false narrative inside of his head to protect himself or to make himself feel safe. Or, you know, if he makes a decision and if he stands up for one, then the other is going to be upset, or so therefore he does nothing. But somebody is still upset, or there's still like this imbalance going through this false narrative. And so even though in the telephone game hello, I'm picking up the phone and you're giving me this information. If I just sit here like, where are you gonna pass this phone? Are you just gonna like, are you gonna hang up on it? Because where's that story gonna go? But now you have this information inside of you that's not being shared, or that's not being disseminated. Or my favorite one is when somebody knows something false about you, and they know that it's false, but instead of standing up for you, or instead of telling you, hey, so-and-so said something false about you, they like maintain this false narrative because they don't want to like rock this boat, which is ironic because nobody wants to recognize that that boat is even there. They want to treat that boat like it's a cloud. I woke up this morning, and it was very foggy. You couldn't even see down the street. The clouds have like descended, and we're walking through the clouds. All these castles in the clouds with their heads in the clouds. All these false narratives and delusions and these stories and these pretenses that people have generated to uphold norms. Okay, well, Amina, if you succeed, leave the door open for those coming after. There's co-creation, there's truth and objectivity. If you get to the bottom of it, if you get to actualize something, if you realize something, share that, give that. There's no sense in trying to like hoard all of that for yourself. But somehow like somebody else knowing what you know takes away your knowledge. It doesn't take away your knowledge at all. It adds to the incubator, it adds to the mix of information. But learning something new and kind of stretching those like neural pathways, I mean, it gives you headaches, it makes you uncomfortable. And there's resistance. Or there's resistance and this like tendency to uphold this narrative. I can't do it, it's too hard. What's a false narrative? It's not difficult. What is difficult is that resistance. This has to do with intellectual, mental realms, truth and air, and a block state and unrealized potential. So things that are blocking the truth, and that false narrative, which is preventing you from being able to reach your your full potential. Like you could be the best candidate for the job, and so jealous butt over here is like, oh my god, did you see what she did? I can't believe. Or I was watching the story. This woman, this lady that I follow, and she was talking about how in high school she was being bullied, and some of the experiences that she was dealing with, and how at a time in her life where she needed the most help and the most support, people gave her the absolute opposite, to the point where they were like peeing in her locker and worse. And it's like, I don't understand why. No, I do. I absolutely understand why people need to create narratives to make themselves feel better, and I think that's where I just kind of get beside myself in all of this, because people know better, yet they do it anyway for like fear of social punishment or of like being disconnected from some sort of group. But why would you want to be in some sort of group that is based on false narratives anyway? But it's tough because you can't really question that false narrative. You can't be like, well, no, that's not real. Because, oh, yes, it is. And they're going to do everything they can to like uphold and maintain that illusion. Wilhelmina Fleming developed a classification system for stars and other astronomical features. And we're talking about classification here when it comes to objectifying things or looking for objective truth, while also being able to hold the space and the acceptance for your subjective reality or your subjective experiences. She discovered 10 novae, over 50 nebulae, and 310 new stars, most famously discovering the Horsehead Nebula in 1888. Maybe there's something there about the Horsehead, too. Power. In 1906, she became the first American woman to be made an honorary member of the Royal Astronomical Society. She also helped open the field of astronomy to women by hiring and supervising a team of women to help catalog stellar spectra and by publishing a paper focused on research completed by other female astronomers at the observatory. Co-creative, supporting other people, not basing things off of your own story and your own narrative, but creating the platforms and the space for other people to have their stories, or creating a narrative that is open to creating safe space for other people and their stories to come through. Thanks for popping on. I kind of felt the energy shift a little bit, and then my mind went to how to disagree. The Emperor is here. We've got something cataclysmic, so when there's something wrong with the leadership, or like when the narrative is favoring one side, oh gosh, how do I get you guys to release your attachments to these ideas and belief systems that shape the way you relate and connect to people in the world? Maybe I feel so hypersensitive about that because I'm one of these weirdo types of people where people have their judgments, you know, just from that initial look about who I am and whatever. And then when they come into contact with that energy, or when I start whatever, and it doesn't align with their assumptions, that's where like these weird projections and these discomfort things come up within people, and they try to, within their mind, justify or reconcile or try to like figure out how to put me into a category. And I see it, I can actively see it in their head, because in interacting with people who are not like that, there are very, very few. I'm very lucky to be very close with one at the moment who can be objective and direct without like the insecurities, who can sit in discomfort. When you're interacting with somebody who can sit in discomfort and who can be uncomfortable, the interaction is so much different than somebody who placates. and who has to make everything comfortable all the time, at least for themselves. Maybe under this idea or this illusion that if it's comfortable for them, then it must be comfortable for everybody else. I just keep having this thing like, don't come in and rock the boat. Don't try to get me to... How to disagree, negotiate difference in a divided world. Let's go here for a second. Because somebody is presenting you with a false narrative and you have to disagree. It goes to taking time. These days, virtually everyone talks virtually. A huge number of our conversations take place on social networking sites. The press of a button or swipe of a screen, you can bundle your thoughts in tidy little packages and send them into infinite internet ether. Technologies like these have led to conversational networks with incredible potential, looking for instance at the role social media played in the anti-government protests. The internet will set us free, or so we tell ourselves. It's not all roses, however. Sometimes it feels as if anything you say runs the risk of a backlash, or at the very least a sarcastic whatever cat video. And then they're going into like social networking being full of just toxic disagreements, fiery exchanges, pointless provocation. Maybe somewhere in that pointless, like, provoking, the false narrative is meant to provoke or to create this. And I always think it's funny where people come in and they're like, oh, you're doing this because of this. Absolutely not. They assume a function based off projections. Panic is here. Let's face it, we all make mistakes. We misspeak. We can be misunderstood. If you say the wrong thing in the wrong context, you risk being called out as foolish or prejudiced or worse. Maybe you told an offensive joke, perhaps you used a politically incorrect term in the office. Your first reaction might be to deny that you meant it. You're just kidding. Often we refuse to even countenance the possibility that we hold bigoted views. Rather than recognizing our own political and moral failings, we become defensive or angry. Sometimes, however, we know we've made an error. The weight of our own bigoted assumptions comes crashing down. We're paralyzed by our own feelings. Like, people get into this panic mode. Because of these social pressures, and they just fucking say anything to try to maintain that power, to maintain that identity. There's this part where they're going into a person being so mired with guilt and self-hatred. People who can't acknowledge their shortcomings or their mistakes because they have to be so perfect and everything, whatever. And if somebody knows they did something that wasn't so perfect, like that, like, panic and that anxiety that sets in from all of these social pressures. But it's ego-based, you know, like, people can't just, I don't know, I'm irritated right now. Something about all of this is really bothering me, really irritating me. And I think it's along the lines of, well, you can't be super objective, or you can't speak your truth because it's gonna make people uncomfortable. You can't tell people what's really going on because then they're gonna be upset that you brought down their illusions and their whole world is gonna come crashing and you're the bad guy because you made people feel bad. But you're not making people feel bad. They already feel bad within themselves. They just can't acknowledge the why, or they just can't, for whatever reasons, reconcile within themselves. It's conditioned programming. A lot of it's cultural, social, cultural, because we live in this economy, or in this culture very influenced by storytelling, from the animations to although some of the animations I think are the most direct and truthful things that are out there, to the sitcoms, to the, there's just so much, there's so much storytelling around us. People telling stories, or people trying to create this, or trying to elicit an emotional response or reaction out of people via the way they narrate, because they're trying to find some semblance of control in their life. Or explanation, maybe, for why things happened, without recognizing the greater energetic balance. Eyes are going to morphic resonance and going to the physics of angels, or the physics of things that are, let's say, karmic. Another weird day. Temperance is here. The cards are everywhere. Finding the balance in things. So I think when it's coming to this idea of false narratives and storytelling, or like people within social constructs trying to turn somebody's attention over here, it creates this pocket over here that needs to be filled with energy, because something has been redirected, so something has to move into place to balance it out, right? There's energy can't be created or destroyed. Everything is just shifting and moving around. So if there's a false narrative that's taking the attention and it's pulling it over here, there's this pocket over here that's being filled with information that, say, maybe once the scales tip, or once maybe this is weighted, or once this one is, this is going to pop up, and the truths will surface, the things will be revealed, or that that counterbalance is going to, like a pendulum, swing back eventually into the other direction. And so there's this false narrative that's being created, where it's swinging the pendulum this way. People are like, wow, what a story, what a story. Until that false narrative is going to reach a threshold, or it's going to reach a tipping point where it's okay, this was believable, but once you kind of get to this, then it's getting a little too far-fetched. Because people want to keep pushing that narrative, and once that narrative goes, there's that in physics where things just kind of free fall for a moment, right? And it just kind of, there's no tension, it just, and then it snaps into tension and things go woof back the other way. And so I think whatever the energy is that I'm picking up on, it's at this moment of free fall, where things have just kind of tipped beyond the scales, things have gone outside of their lane. Oof. And now maybe that's where that tower keeps coming into play, where I mean, it's right here. Right? It's that free fall where things are gonna just kind of float. And it feels in this place, until it's like the oh shit, and it snaps this way. And we haven't hit that like oh shit snap yet. We're still in this like where see the energy that's being addressed or questioned in this like false narrative space is at this like weird free fall. And so something is gonna like snap into place. What is that? The sun is kind of standing out. I mean, everything is going to come to light. Luck is there. Something says reductive. The cross weaves pain historically sad. A distance too close means tidings are bad. Suffering increases when the cross is near, but burdens can lift if you persevere. That perseverance comes in that space of free fall where you get beyond the panic, you know, and you realize that you're prepared and you have a parachute. All you have to do is like, or like reorient your perspective. So like that banana in the jar with the monkey. It's not gonna go anywhere. You're gonna panic. Right? But if you reorient the banana, then you can like easily retrieve what it is that you're looking for. So as you're free falling, you can orient yourself in a way that is aligned with physics and gravity, right? When you pull that cord, woof, physics and gravity are going to work together to like bring you back into play, like bring you back into level. The fox is sly, a friend is too. Someone may try to deceive you with the stories. That's why people create false narratives. They create these storylines that want to triangulate or kind of like deter you from figuring out what's real and what's the truth. So they want to like shift that blame or something onto somebody else. With wily glances, the renard snaps. It's that point of like, boo, this like, bah, or it's kind of like, that snap. Evade deception and beware old traps. So this is breaking out of behavioral patterns, recognizing the behavioral patterns, understanding the function. Why is this person creating this narrative and why is this person lying to me? Not just, oh, this person is lying to me, or, oh, you know, maybe this person, oof. Here's the snake again. Ooh. Ooh, we're moving all kinds of weird stuff up and out today. Vile is the serpent who lulls with a bite. Be not indulgent or slow to the fight. Flee every moment she turns on the charm. This poised opponent will bring you to harm. We had mentioned something about that with the charmingness. If somebody's trying to charm you and make you feel comfortable, they're not being direct and they're not being real, right? They're trying to create this narrative to make you think and feel a certain way, like they're toying with your emotions to get you to react or to respond or to do something to serve some greater purpose. That's where you need to be careful. I just want to say be very careful of the people that are trying to charm you or that are trying to please you. And I think a lot of the reasons why I get a lot of resistance is because I'm not afraid of making people uncomfortable. And so they're like, oh no, this person isn't going out of their way to make me comfortable, so they're the problem, or they're, which isn't the problem at all, right? Excuse me, I'll crack this window. Let those things out. As we're smudging, we're going to give it all somewhere to go. I'm just going to breathe for a moment, kind of there's a letter here, and something about this false narrative and this letter, or somebody trying to communicate something to you. This surprise letter from a place remote brings good news from a friend who wrote. If the words portend a stormy sky, sadness will soon much intensify. The truth hurts. Seeing beyond the illusions to what's really going on, that hurts. When you realize somebody has only been nice to you for so long because of something else, and you see that they're really like mean behind all of that, that hurts. Love hurts. No, I don't want to even go there. A geologist? Should we see what Alice Wilson wants to tell us? We're going for the stars, now we're going to hit the land. And here we go into this other little deck too. People will say just about anything for that get out of jail free card. Punishment, if it's not full force first time, will generate a bunch of unwanted behavior. So if somebody knows they're going to get in trouble for doing something, or somebody knows that they're doing something wrong, and they're not going to, like, you know, meet death by it, because our society doesn't do that. There's some level of compassion in there. You know what I mean? Hard facts. Imagine a world where everyone lies. You ask someone the time and they tell you it's noon when it's midnight. You ask for directions and you're told to go left instead of right. What kind of world would this be? A highly dysfunctional one. When we talk to each other, we rely on our partners telling the truth. But what is truth exactly? One widespread view states that claims about truth and falsity rely on the assumption that there's a real external world that exists independently of how we conceive it. Statements that grass is green or water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen molecules are true. They're facts. They accurately map these features of the external world. For the realist, the world can meet our expectations or it can frustrate them. It does so irrespective of what we think about it. The molecular composition of water is not a matter of opinion. It's not subjective. Reality has the final say. It's objective. It's the axiom. It's the truth. 1 + 1 = 2. Right? Antecedent, behavior, consequence. Water, hydrogen, oxygen. So when somebody is trying to tell you, oh, water is made up of magic and sparkles. No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. See, let me create the story that explains why and how. Oh, okay. So how do you know what the objective truth is? You go to your toolkit, you get your tools, you find your instruments that can measure data, collect information, right? A lot of people don't know how to collect data or don't know how to collect information without having some sort of emotional bias, looking for that confirmation bias, gathering information and data to support these false narratives. I remember being in this group setting where this woman had brought together this container for people, and the foundation of it was, you're not safe in here. I'm safe, but you're not safe. I can say and believe and do and whatever I want, and you can't touch me, but you can't say and do and whatever you want, because if you say and you do something, I'm gonna find a way to justify it or align it with my belief system, my bias, and find a way to explain your behavior to fit my bias based off of this initial, like, say, 30-second quick interaction. Oh, you cried, therefore you are this. To create this narrative, to create this false narrative, to establish some sort of sense of power or whatever, to make herself feel better. By making everyone else in that group feel like shit. And I asked myself, well, why would I put myself in a container knowing that this person is going to make me feel like shit no matter what I say or what I do? This person is going to completely undermine me as an individual and completely take the subjective route with me to fit in their narrative. Why am I going to do that? Why would I sit butt naked in front of a group full of strangers so they can draw my body? Why would I do that? It doesn't look anything like me. Because it's interesting, because it's informative, because it expands your mind and expands your knowledge. It gives you an opportunity to empathize and to see what it's like to be somebody else for a moment. I can understand the function of that behavior. I can put myself in her shoes and I get it. I get it. I understand why she did that. I understand the foundation from it, you know, and I can sit in discomfort. And I can notice and be objective about the emotions and the feelings that come up. It's hard work. It is not comfortable at all. Maybe that's why we'll look at the geologist. I don't think it would be comfortable to be a geologist. You know, you're sitting amongst the rocks all day long. Chiseling at things that are hard, looking at things that are hard. Like tangibly hard. Some not as hard as others. Some rocks are definitely more brittle than others. Alice Wilson. There have been a lot of women throughout history who've contributed so much information, yet we're told no. If you're feeling overwhelmed, spend some time outside. If you're feeling overwhelmed with these social situations and people and these narratives, and I know family stuff is coming up, holidays are coming up, like, step away from your computer, go outside, go be in nature, go sit with yourself, right? We went over that one yesterday, sitting with yourself in silence, sitting with your own discomfort long enough that you can hear yourself and listen to yourself about the truth of the experiences and why, without trying to label them or judge them or name them or call them a thing. You sit in that discomfort, you allow the feelings and the experiences to come up, you experience the energy, and you allow the shift to occur, right? So at that, like, maybe there's a sense of panic too, because if there's this narrative that's being created, if somebody's created this narrative about you and that narrative is like overreached, overextended itself into the realm of like, okay, there's no way that can be, and it's going to this. If we're in that panic mode, anticipating this snapback, what's this preparation? Alice Wilson was an outdoorsy child, spending her summers fossil hunting with her family. As the first female geologist hired by the Geological Survey of Canada, Wilson had to fight for the right to pursue a PhD and do field work. in a world that is so based on illusion and lies and falsity and stories and these false narratives, you have to fight for the truth. You have to stand up in the midst of it all, and I think that's why journaling is so important. Collecting data, when I say show me the data, in this lens of behavior analysis, we're talking about observation, logged information, forming connections. If you're going to do experiments with humans and human subjects, there's a research certification process for that, where ethics and morals and how to go about this are strongly emphasized. So for the people that are creating the containers to put the people in to do the things to gather the confirmation bias without having that, say, research certification, or without having the training to be objective or to hold space for objectivity and still recognize your subjective experience, you're doing the world a disservice, or you're creating these false narratives, again, to uphold the personal bias to make yourself more comfortable, because there's been like a loss of control. That's all it is. It's a loss of control in this gray area space where somebody has to feel like they're on top, instead of allowing things to like exist simultaneously or coexist simultaneously. It's like you can't be this or that. You have to somehow justify something in the middle, or like you hold strong opinions and you hold strong beliefs about things. It's interesting to note who will be very uncomfortable by that. She was forbidden from working at the remote field sites with her male colleagues, so she made the case that she could work alone in the nearby St. Lawrence Valley. Over the next 50 years, she became the leading authority on local fossils and rocks. When she retired, 5 people had to be hired to replace her. I know what that's like. I know what it's like leaving a group or leaving an organization and watching so many people try to come in and fill my place. It's funny to see the number of people that were like trying to push me out so they can step in, and knowing that they stepped into shoes that were too big for them to fill, so they left. Or other people had to be brought in, or there's like, it was just never done. My job never got done, never got realized. Not in the context of the group. And maybe this is where that like counterintuitive paradoxical thing comes into play, because people create these false narratives in a sense, or as a means to elevate themselves or to position themselves within the context of a group setting, authority of having more than over others. But in that crab bucket, nothing gets done. Nothing innovative occurs. Nothing new comes out of it. It's just this false narrative and this story that keeps getting recycled over and over and over to maintain some sort of, some semblance of comfort. In stepping out and doing my own thing and being a hermit, I feel like I've been able to, on my own, accomplish so much more, because there's not the distractions or the outside information or the people trying to tell me what it should look like or how to do things, or trying to influence things, or, every time I make a circle, somebody comes along and, has to turn it into a square, or has to cover up that circle to put their square on top. Instead of allowing the space for the circle to exist and integrating the circle into a larger overarching thing. That false narrative is that desire to come in and cover up or replace somebody else's story with their own. Probably because they're trying to protect themselves from something, because they know if they were to be caught, they would get in trouble. So they're avoiding punishment for something and creating this narrative as a means to protect themselves. If you're hiding the truth, you probably shouldn't have done it. Or somebody is hiding the truth from you. That's their guilt and their shame talking. So just because you're ostracized or pushed out of something doesn't make you bad. Maybe that's the complete opposite side of things. The moon. This is having an objective and a subjective reality and being able to balance out both. I don't know, do you need a solution for this? Maybe. You have to persevere with it and continue to hold on to the truth and continue to speak the truth and continue to do what's right, even in the face of adversity. That's the test, right? That's the challenge. Devote some time to your children, parents, or grandparents. Share the energy of familial love. If it's a healthy family. I get to spend some extra time with my child right now, and it's interesting, I guess, what energy is coming up around that situation, and how there's this narrative attempting to be created of, well, there's no real reason for you to have that extra time. As if my time, my essence, my energy is not valuable based on somebody's perceived value, when the objective situation would show that this extra time is the best thing for everybody involved. We can show the data to support that. And oftentimes when you're doing what is best for you and for your family, your children, somebody's gonna come along and try and tell you you're wrong, or you're doing it whatever, or they're like gonna try and take something from you. Have a sense of humility. Don't be too proud, so you can find peace against troubles. I keep playing this scenario over in my head. The other night when we went out to dinner, we were overhearing this, I don't even want to call them a couple, because what a fucking lame excuse for a relationship. These two, and this guy was talking down to this girl and berating her over the most ridiculous things. Like, I can't believe you have a car. I ride my bike everywhere. And you just... There's this theme that keeps showing up around that sort of energy where, oh, my energy is shifting. Bear with me for a second. I'm gonna ground back into that point, because this one's just kind of flew into a completely different direction. Fuck it. Ah, fuck. Is there someone you've been quarreling with? Is it time to let go and move on? Fertility and growth. This means it's your time to thrive. How can you expand today? Something in that radical acceptance where you just have to allow things to be what they are. Hi, baby. Sorry. I got really sidetracked. Okay, this thing's gonna go in kind of a different direction. Give me a second here. My subjectivity is kicking in. Let's get us back into an objective place here before my emotions start to get the best of me. Okay, I've detached myself here for a second. Good morning. I guess we're coming back into these ladies. We're gonna go to Caroline, Lucretia, Herschel. Find my book. Okay. Astronomer and comet hunter. I'm hunting for something. I'm looking for something. I'm looking for the truth. Because I can feel and sense there's this false narrative. There's this story. It's almost like the Truman Show where, like being completely oblivious to this story that's being told about you and having people like interact with you in this role in a way that's like so far removed from your truth and reality. Like it feels very surreal in this space. But I keep feeling that weird energy. So let's explore, let's hunt for the truth in this situation and kind of get through this false narrative. I mean, even in like media and programming and in the news, like we should know better, like we should know how to do this by now, right? Instability and change. But again, we're in the intellectual, mental realms, the truth. This part. False, 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 false. Truth. Ooh, this instability. Ooh, everything is like coming into play. You can outgrow the limitations placed on you. So if somebody is limiting you with this story, you are this, therefore you do this, and you have to show up here, and you have to go here, and you have to do this. This has to all look like... you can outgrow that. Just because somebody says something about you, to you, about you, doesn't mean that that is real or true. And I like the life drawing situation scenario because this is where people are most humble. People that are representing you know that that representation does not look like you, and they're like, I'm so sorry, this doesn't look anything like you, please don't judge me for being a bad artist because I can't make it photorealistically look like you. But they know, right? And that with training and so much practice, eventually maybe we can get it to this photorealistic place. But even in the realm of psychology and neurology, something is programmed and wired into our brains where if we're going to render somebody's face, we have a tendency to use our own facial or our own cells and foundation, right? So the people we draw have a tendency to look like us. You can see it in the Mona Lisa, and Mona Lisa kind of looking like Da Vinci, right? Or how his, that kind of thing. In this life drawing world of humility, right? That part's easy. But when it comes to the narratives and the stories and the projections and the things that people put on us, the roles we're assumed to have to play, or the whatever roles we fit into people's lives, it's not tangible like a drawing. A drawing is tangible. I can see it, I can touch it, we can, like, there's the objective thing, it's outside of us. We took this perception and we extrapolated it and we put it out there so we can objectively look at the psyche. When it's a story, or when somebody's narrating or creating a narrative, there's nothing tangible to look at. We have to rely on the telephone game. We have to rely on our ability to auditorily interpret and then come up with concepts to be able to conceive something. We have to fit it into the heuristics programmed into our brains to, you know, like the wiring takes over. So it's much more difficult to outgrow that, because we can't, unless you're tracking your data. Today I woke up at 9 a.m. this 9, you know, and you're objectively measuring yourself, you won't know. There's all kinds of things you can do to get objective measures. I mean, they even make those, like, the rings and the things that'll tell you your heart rate and your blood pressure. Like, you can get biological feedback. You can go get blood tested. You can, like, get the data. You can gather objective data to get a more real idea about what's going on. This is kind of interesting, like with journalism or investigations, right? It's not just one person they'll question. There's a series of parameters that are geared towards different people, and all of those stories combine to create a more clear picture of what's going on. Growing up in Germany in the mid-18th century, Caroline Herschel never enjoyed the privilege of a formal education. Fortunately, her brother William took her on as an assistant in his work as court astronomer to King George III. There she learned the tools of her trade, crafting telescopes by accurately grinding and polishing mirrors, scanning the night skies with them, and discovering the stars, comets, and nebula. Later in her life, Herschel was the first woman to be named an honorary member. Outgrow your limitations by using your tools. I put together a tool kit for you that explains to you how to use the tools. Go to kelseysweet.com and the transformation guide, and there's the PDF, the toolkit PDF. You can download it for free. It explains how to use the tools, how to create a toolkit, and how to use tools to create conscious transformation. So then this, like, weird free fall where things are getting ready to, like, snap into action, you're prepared for that. Do we have anything else here? I mean, kind of. Someone's honking outside. Hong Kong to you too. Maybe it's time to kind of wrap it up. You have a creative endeavor in the works. It's time to make it public. That's the transformation guide. It's there. Go look at it. It's a creative endeavor. I've been working on it for years. I'm still working on it. It's going to be a lifelong project. Let purposeful action guide you. What's the purpose? What's the function? Right? The purposeful is having a clear function defined before engaging in behavior. What are you looking for, and what do you hope to accomplish? What are we looking for? Truth, reality, if you're if you're in a world where everybody's lying and everything is just full of this whatever, you're not really in reality. Anything you do and anything you decide to do, like, it's never going to get you anywhere you want to go. You're just programmed into this matrix to kind of like feed into a system, like little robots and little sheeple. The robots, the sheeple, the zombies. So if you want to get out of that part of the things, get in touch with nature. Break out of that matrix and sit with yourself. But you have to have the courage to be able to sit with yourself. And there's so many people that don't know how to be alone with themselves. I know somebody told me before, I don't know how you can go to a restaurant by yourself and just eat alone with nobody. I always have to call a friend to go with me because I can't, for the life of me, go to a restaurant and eat something by myself because it's too uncomfortable. Because in that moment you're aware of all the people around you. There's nothing but yourself to guide your social conditions and to guide your programming. If you bring a friend with you, if you have somebody there with you, they're a stimulus for you. They're an SD, a stimulus delta, for certain behaviors. So you know how to predict your own behaviors. You know how to predict the behaviors of others. You can have this sense of control because there's behavioral predictability based off of this chain, and the function is just not having to panic and be anxious and get yourself into a situation where you have to be novel, right? People maybe are afraid of the novelty or being novel. They like it when the outcomes are predictable. If I act like this, then people are going to give me that. Instead of being in the place of authenticity and truth of this is whatever, this is the thing, and allowing the novelty to dictate the outcome. Like being open to change, being open to things going in a completely different direction is really important. But people are grieving, or they're just like mourning the emotional loss, or how addictive is it to be caught up in this something because it's predictable? Fight or flight mode. Ask your nervous system, maybe. The environment has a lot to do with the nervous system. I'm trying to think of anything else. If there's anything else that we can kind of take out of this today. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, if you're going through this, like, emotional upset and the whatever, it's a lot of hard work. It's like, you just gotta do the work, you gotta do the labor, and you can't go through it without experiencing it first. But it doesn't have to be work, it can be play. But the heartaches, this, I think, is what is driving a lot of that false narrative. I don't know, having to let go or leave behind the aspects of that. Interesting that we're talking about the extremes and being in the gray area. There's no gray area there. There's this side and there's that side, and she's being able to hold space for both. Recognizing that both exist, the light and the dark both exist, and to be in like perpetual gray area, that doesn't make sense. I mean, it's either day or it's night. There's dusk and there's dawn, sure, but the sun is up or the sun is down. You know, when the sun's on that horizon, get up and get going, put some vigor in your actions and get things done. It's just gonna take courage. Is there anything else? I mean, kind of. You guys can reach out to me anytime for private readings and private sessions. But you don't, for whatever reasons, and that's fine. When the timing is right, it will happen. Be mindful of your passions. Anger and unrestrained desire can lead to conflict in relationships. I think there's something here in this, like, confronting the false narrative to uncover the truth, where it doesn't make sense to be mad at somebody for creating a false narrative or for lying. There's the tower again. It's people do stupid shit. There's a function to it. I mean, it shouldn't surprise you that people would lie and come up with stories to try and preserve their ego. It should be like, why would that make you mad? Well, yeah, because, you know, they did it to you or something, or it's had its consequences, or, you know, you've held somebody to this esteem, or you've idealized something in such a way. There's something really beautiful I heard this morning, too, kind of in the meditations of things, where this girl is talking about how she went to her therapist, and her therapist was the kind of therapist, you know, had pictures of him and his girlfriend out, and he was just so about this girl, and she found out that his girlfriend had cheated on him. And so, you know, before her session, she's like, oh God, there's that tension, there's that discomfort of like, where's this gonna, like, whoa, and this free fall, that anticipation, right? She didn't know what to expect. And so she's like, okay, so, well, hey, what happened? And she was so impressed with this guy's reaction, or how this guy handled this situation, because he wasn't mad, he wasn't angry, he wasn't heartbroken and torn up and distraught, you know, he was still able to show up and do his job. And in that space, what did he say? I might botch it. Could have butchered a little bit, but it's along the lines of, I was so happy in this relationship where this woman had cheated on me. And I was happy knowing, you know, I was just happy. Even though the situation wasn't ideal. Which means that there's room and there's space and there's the hope for, well, when I am in the perfect relationship and there isn't the cheating, I'm going to be so much happier. Like, if I'm that happy being in a situation where I'm being cheated on, or where somebody's betrayed me, and I can still be that happy, when I am in a situation where somebody is being honest and direct and truthful and real, the level of happiness that I will feel is just beyond, and that is something to look forward to, and that is something to be excited about. And I thought that was beautiful. There's something in that radical acceptance there, where he doesn't make it about him and faults within him. I think if somebody is going to cheat or be manipulative or create these false narratives, that's what cheating is. That's what false narratives are. False narratives are cheating. To try to win or to try to get ahead of something. When everything is real and truthful and everything is in the light, right? You get that sun card. When you have that innocence and you have that playfulness and you have joy and you have love and you have compassion, and some people haven't emotionally matured enough to figure that one out. They're still emotionally immature, emotionally stunted. They lack the intelligence in the realm of emotions, where they're just not going to be able to hold themselves accountable. Or the ones where, this is kind of my favorite, and I chuckle, but it's so painful to experience it. I've just had it happen a number of times in different relationships, where you get that projection from the person who's cheating on you, and they're accusing you of cheating, and they're saying that you're doing this, or, you know, like, you turn your phone over, and then all of a sudden they make this huge deal, and I can't believe you, and whatever, and they just go into this rage. And they haven't done anything. Or, like, my best worst birthday ever, the best part about it was getting to be alone by myself. I took myself to the lake, I spent some time with some geese, and I just got to sit with myself in silence and in nature and just be. It was so peaceful, and the geese and I had breakfast, and I got to meditate and write, and the weather was beautiful. I mean, it was amazing. There was no external pressure, nobody trying to take my attention, nobody needing or wanting anything from me. You know, I could just be and be at peace. It was beautiful. And then I got home. And what I came into, or what I walked into, was anger and rage and accusations from somebody who was so drunk, like beyond, because they had, you know, started this false narrative of, oh, she couldn't possibly be by herself, she's got to be out there doing something, and building up this story and like drinking themselves into this thing so that when I showed up, my truth, my reality didn't matter. That false narrative took over. And being the recipient of that sort of energy sucks. It sucks so bad. When you're honest and you're truthful and you're doing the right thing, you've done nothing wrong, and somebody comes along and creates this story where they're trying to put you in this position where you're trying to make it out like you've done something you haven't done, and they're punishing you for it, threatening you for it. This person, because I spent my birthday alone, threatened to publicly destroy me. And that's the part where it's just like, you can get mad at it, you can be angry at this person for wanting to cause you harm based off this narrative that they've created in their head. But at the end of the day, it's just not worth it. Like, it's fucking funny. It's funny to me because the person who believes that false narrative and who gets so caught up in that false narrative misses out on the opportunity for peace, love, compassion, partnership, harmony, connection. Poof, gone, all out the window. Poof, because they would much rather believe this false narrative. Sucks to be you. You know? You can try all day long trying to tell me that I was doing something I wasn't. But that's not the truth. And I'm not going to acquiesce to this thing and be like, oh yeah, you know, let's make you feel comfortable and appease your ego. Like, and believe the false narrative about myself? I think not. Concentrate on finding your power, calling your power back. Because I think when people are creating that false narrative, it's power struggle. They're creating some sort of narrative to superimpose themselves over somebody else or position themselves in a place of control to control the narrative, right? So reclaiming that power, recalling that back, that has been challenging for me. Because there've just been people who have said things that are incredibly untrue and hurtful. And they're the people who believe that. I don't know, that's the part where, like, I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around, because in calling my power back and stepping into that power and then speaking the truth, that's where that resistance comes in that, like, realm of lies, because people are trying to, you know, uphold this narrative, and it's just like, that's not at all what it is. And getting masses to drop that illusion all at once, like, it just feels really impossible. Divinity comes from within and radiates your authority outward and around you. Intrinsic motivation. False narratives come from a space of extrinsic motivation. Something outside of you is motivating that behavior, possibly social gain, clout, some sort of power, status. That's external motivation. Somebody's giving you something, right? Whether it's sex or money or food or esteem or some sort of job or something. Somebody's giving you something. That's extrinsic motivation. You know, people lie because they're extrinsically motivated. Hey, I'll give you a bunch of money if you can say these things about that person. I know a number of people like that. I found myself in that position a couple of times where, and I've caught them too, and I think one even had it on record where they're trying to like direct this narrative and direct this conversation to get me to try and say something or to do something to make it look a certain way so they can take this information, you know, and this person was paid by this person to do the thing to like, oh, it's so gross. And that somebody would be motivated by money to harm somebody else for somebody else, all to uphold some sort of narrative. It's just gross. So if we're talking intrinsic motivation, right, that's being motivated from within to do the right thing. So even though everybody else is like lining up and making fun of so-and-so, I'm not going to sit over here and be a bystander and join in to be cool or to like whatever. We're going to go report that to the authorities. We're going to go tell somebody, hey, this injustice is occurring. Marbus fights bodily disorders and cures sickness. Healing is coming like a roaring lion that destroys diseases. The truth can heal, right? Oftentimes when we're suppressing things, suppressing truth, holding guilt, shame, false identities, like those lies live and exist in our bodies. Our bodies know that that's not true and that's not real, and they'll react with anxiety, panic, fight or flight mode. Something within us will get sick, will get ill. You can see it a lot in body language. In the body language of people who are trying to lie or hide something, or they want to like, you know, or something about the people who can't sit still within themselves, like the bouncing knee, like the anxiety of like the discomfort when people aren't in control of the narrative. There's not, I'm like, is there really that many like toxic and manipulative people out there? I mean, it's yes and no. Because sometimes those, like, charmers aren't going to be like that with everybody. They're only going to be like that with a select few. Kind of in that superficial realm. It's easy to go with the narrative to whatever, but until you really get to know somebody and get to know somebody on an interpersonal level, like kind of behind closed doors, you don't really ever know, you know? Let out the blazing fire within you. Allow it to destroy anything unproductive in your life. False narratives are unproductive. Consider your talents. How can they help you overcome any obstacles? Let's kind of smudge and clear this out again. You're right. Toxic insecurity is dangerous. People who are insecure this insecurity, they're kind of like, fighting to like grab on, to hold on to anything, right? Because they can't trust in the process, and this, like, the things will snap back into place. And when people are insecure, well, everybody has their insecurities, but like that toxic insecurity, you know, where they fail to address or admit their insecurities, and they kind of let those insecurities overwhelm them, or they want to create that narrative like, I'm great and perfect and everything is fine with me, you're the one that, you know, that. How do you use what you know to accomplish your goals? How do you use the truth of what you know to accomplish your goals? And what are your goals? I put this one here. Let's take one or two out here, and then we'll close this one off for the day. Reach out if you want. Go to kelseysweet.com. Look for your toolkit. Start building your toolkit for transformation. Come up with the tools that you need to be able to get through this. Nobody can do it for you. That motivation has to come from within. Look at this deck. This is such a bizarre deck. 6 coins. You're being presented here with an opportunity to make change. And that change has to do with your belief systems. Are you going to choose to believe this or not? Can you hold space for two seemingly different truths, and can you be patient enough to wait for the answer, the truth, without feeling like you have to come up with something now? I have no idea how to read this deck. It would be fascinating to identify the emotion or circumstance illustrated by each card. Is that what these false narratives are doing, is creating these emotional circumstances? Give me a moment here, because in the face of it all, or despite what other people think, despite what I feel, I'm gonna do it anyway. That's confidence. Even though everybody else is doing the wrong thing, I have the confidence within me to do the right thing. The masses are all going to be going in one direction, and so to be the one who decides to turn and go the opposite direction, that's going to be met with resistance and some interesting judgments. I guess you are Cups. The female Knight of Cups has the same richness of color and elegance seen in the male Page of Cups. Invitation to a social event, emotional passion, innovation, and attraction. Okay. being actualized in the context of a group, sure, you can be your own power and accept an invitation and show up to the party and go just as yourself, no big deal. Where these false narratives come into play, and where you need to checkity check yourself before you wreckity wreck yourself. Again, what's the function? The false narrative is often created out of slyness, opportunism, exploitation, particularly through the emotions, and manipulative people do that. Plain and simple. I mean, if somebody is trying to create a false narrative and trying to get you to think things in a certain way, then they're a manipulative person. And a manipulative person is a manipulative person. They're never not going to be manipulative, even if they're trying to charm you into thinking that you're the only one that they're not manipulating. Like, if you feel a little too comfortable around them, ask yourself why. Because even in like the most raw, vulnerable relationship contexts, where people are being authentically themselves, that's not a comfortable relationship. It's rather uncomfortable to be that vulnerable. And it's not a bad thing. Like, I just think of the giddiness, you know, like falling in love and like the intensity of staring the person you love in the eyeballs, like this other card has to do with generosity, philanthropy, charity, kindness, gratification, gifts, material gain. Sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody is just to be honest and to be direct. And it can be a little bit scary, but when you're honest about your truth and what you've gone through, and somebody still loves and accepts you for that, it builds security. It builds a sense of safety that you can be true and you can be honest and you can be yourself and you're going to be safe. Those false narratives are really tricky because they don't allow for safety or security. That false narrative is a false sense of security that is designed to make other people feel unsafe. And by making other people feel unsafe, some people get some sense of power from that. Other people, if you don't like making people feel unsafe, you're gonna feel bad when somebody feels unsafe with you, right? But they're the manipulative people where you could be the safest person in the world and they're gonna be like, oh, you're not safe. But if you know that you're a safe person and somebody's projecting that lack of safety on you, I've had that happen too in a conflict where there should have been no conflict. There's no reason to have conflict. We could have just had direct, honest conversation. But instead of that, it was like creating this false narrative that, you know, I was an unsafe, whatever, relationships are unsafe, and therefore you have to be angry and volatile in order to, like, protect yourself or something. Like, to the point where I even had somebody take my stuff and, like, literally throw it out the door and, like, dump it out on the ground, you know, because something about their false narrative was brought into question and the truth started coming out. And instead of sitting in the discomfort and walking through and working through that to get to the truth and the core of the matter, they perpetuated the false narrative by creating an environment of toxicity that was unsafe, that was volatile, that was violent, and very humiliating, all with the purpose, all with the function of trying to establish or maintain some sense of control to uphold this false narrative and this bias that they have. Because if that come crushing down, and if they had to sit with themselves and with what was really come up and acknowledge the part that they played, you know, to take any sort of accountability in that, I don't know, people just, I feel sorry for that type of person, where they feel so unsafe within themselves that they don't know themselves well enough, or they don't feel good enough within themselves. Not like just self-love, but there's like a self-trust of knowing that if I'm alone and I'm by myself and I fall, I can catch myself. I know how to pick myself back up if I fall. But there are a lot of people who rely on somebody else there to catch them if they fall, or to like kind of support them and kind of bolster their ego, to feed into that false narrative of like, no, you didn't do anything wrong. Great, that other person is like, ugh. That's a tough place to be in. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 swords. Ruin, pain, affliction, sadness, mental anguish, desolation, tears, misfortune, trouble, disappointment. I mean, even the other side of that, the benefit, the profit, the temporary gain, the improvement, passing success, temporary favor, momentary advantage. Like the reasons why people would create these false narratives. It's a distraction. It's an avoidant technique. It's something that people do to take themselves or dissociate themselves from what's really going on. Because we live in this world of lies and counterfeit and like false information, and we have to like comb through everything to figure out what is real, because the truth and being honest and being direct makes people too uncomfortable, and we have somehow said that discomfort is bad. I don't know. Okay. This is such a strange deck. Like, I don't know why you need me to tell you this. I mean, yes I do, because in those places where people are trying to pull the wool over your eyes, it's really helpful for somebody to come along and be like, that's wool over your eyes. No, it's not, it's a cloud. That's not a cloud. That's wool over your eyes. Oh no, it's not, it's beautiful. It's wool over your eyes. That's a ship. Oh no, it's not, it's... So we're gonna sit here and we're gonna show up and we're gonna keep doing this work until you can recognize that that is not a cloud, that is a ship. No, I'm not gonna sit here and delude you into thinking or get you to this place where, okay, you're right, it's a cloud. Sure, we're not going to enable that. Rides a white horse, fitted with ornate trappings. A mature and responsible person, reliable, methodical, patient, persistent, able to conclude a task, laborious, organized, capable, a dependable person. If you're looking to objectify something and discipline yourself, those are the things that you need to be doing. the reasons why false narratives would be created is because of stagnation, carelessness, inertia, lack of determination or direction, narrow-mindedness, limited by dogmatic views, and idleness. Maybe it's important here to recognize that people create false narratives because they don't feel safe. It's a survival mechanism. And it's not about you, it's about them, because they don't feel safe within themselves. And somebody who does not feel safe within themselves is not safe for you. Right? If you feel safe within yourself, chances are you're safe with other people, safe for other people. Is there anything else you want to know? I mean, yeah, okay, so let's breathe. Ask a question. Put it to the forefront. Confront the mountain. We have the mountain. Confront it. Face it. Face this challenge head on because it's not going anywhere. There's a false narrative that was created. You need to stand up and be like, that's not true. To avoid your defeat, strike hard the first blow. That means when you see something bad happening, call it out. Right? Like this bypasser thing, and how people justify that to themselves. Like I had a boyfriend one time who left me alone in a tent with somebody who ended up doing really horrible things to me. And months later he tells me, oh yeah, well, I saw what happened and I did nothing. And then in trying to confront this issue head on and trying to resolve it and, you know, integrate it into my being, it was the, well, that happens all the time, what's the big deal? This false narrative thing, like, I'm really tired of that whole bypassing bystander thing from people, especially spiritual stuff. Just be happy, just pretend like it didn't exist. You know, I'm watching this horrible thing happen to you, but I'm not going to do anything about it because I'm not comfortable, or I don't want to put my own life at risk or something, so I'll just let that bad thing happen to you. And, you know, now that you're out of this bad thing, you know, what's the big deal? Like, you can't be upset that that bad thing happened to you because that bad thing happens all the time. That false narrative where people want to undermine your experiences or want to control the emotional context in which your experience is shaped. The first obstacle is a chance to succeed. Courage and persistence are all that you need. Sometimes, like, just taking that first step and initiating the first thing is the hardest part. Like, once you decide to do something and once you commit to it and you take that first action, it's super easy. You know? Like going to the gym. You take the action, you commit, you get the membership, and then you drive yourself there, and then you show up, and then you do it. Right? It takes effort. It takes courage. It takes work. It doesn't just, like, happen. You don't just, like, think in your brain and then, you know, you're, like, you have to, despite how you feel, do it anyway. And just persist. Which is ironic because what you resist persists. So if you're resisting the truth, if you're resisting acknowledging what's really happening, it's going to persist. Heed well good news from the cavalier. Impassioned views promise good cheer. Sadness that hides, veiled in the day, once disguised, soon flies away. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But once you acknowledge it, once you see it, and you come out, it comes out, and we can objectify it, and we can acknowledge it, and we can see it for what it is, then we can work with it, we can transmute it, we can alchemize it, we can do something about it, we can come up with a solution. But until we're looking at what's really going on, there's not ever going to be any solution, because that false narrative is designed to create conflict, not solution. You know, again, so what is the function? What are you doing it for? Are you doing it for popularity and for clout? Because oftentimes, if we're going to stand in our truth and we're going to do the right thing, or we're going to do the thing that makes us uncomfortable, people are going to not be super okay with that. Flowers surrounded in clover leaf mean happiness surmounted over grief. Bits of luck and fortune await. You have the potential to make life great. Yeah, we're just gonna not get over it, but get through it. And just let it go. Radically accept it. Go with the flow. I don't know, someone's getting a love letter. When the truth comes out about how somebody feels, pay attention. I don't know, just pay attention. Whether or not you care. I'm going to grab the sense of being stared at, because I can, especially in the last few times that I've done this, maybe the last 3 or 4 times especially, without even like looking at the screen and acknowledging who's popping on, I'm picking up on like these really big energy shifts, and like, oh, weird energy, and then I look over and it's like a person just popped up in the live stream, and I go, oh, and I mean, go back a couple of minutes, you can see that like shift when we know we're being watched, right? And we know we're being observed. Ooh, especially if somebody's creating a false narrative and then they're watching and observing you, and then trying to control something within the social dynamic, so that people can't see you. Experiments on the effects of staring through mirrors. Many people have noticed that if they stare at someone through a mirror, for example, in a bar, the person may turn and look at them through the mirror. This implies that the sense of being stared at depends on the direction from which the gaze is coming, even if it has been reflected. Interesting, huh? The evolution of telepathy. We were talking about telepathy yesterday, and we were like at 800 views for the video yesterday. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys watch this shit. Thank you. Well, yeah, no, because I feel you, and I can sense it, and I can pick it up here. And kind of like that mirror thing, especially like with the camera, because there's something mirroring back. But I can, like, in my brain, there's like all these mirrors, right? It's not quite like a hall of mirrors, but maybe. And then in the mirrors, there's the different faces, or like the different views that are like, that I can see. Because it's not direct, but it's this like, and maybe that's why I feel like a lot of these readings are very indirect, or they kind of like circle around the point. I watch a lot of tarot card readers, trying to get a sense of what other people are doing for my own research, and a lot of them go at it this very like, I want to say like direct, blunt way of like, oh, he, like, it's just very, like, it just feels superficial, or it just feels very much like that storyline. We don't do that here. We can do that individually, more one-on-one maybe. But there's something much like broader, I think, that I'm attuned to at the moment, or that I'm tuning into or picking up on this. It's weird for me. No, it's very, very weird for me, because I want to be a lot more specific. But in doing so, I don't know, it's going to turn certain people away or turn people off. Telepathy occurs in animals of many different species. I mean, from bees to bugs. I mean, this even goes into the realm of behaviorism, like the way a human learns is the same way a beetle learns, is the same way a bird learns, is the same way, you know, a cat learns, is the same way a fish learns, is the same way an amoeba learns. It's an antecedent of behavior and a consequence. It's classical conditioning. Humans just do this stupid thing where they have verbal behavior. And through that verbal behavior, it's very easy to create illusions where we can get out of objectivity, and we have these subjective narratives that are put onto the world to trying to explain what is happening, and as a means to try and communicate with in social standings and social structures. I'm curious just to, I guess, for my own sense of whatever, I'll come back to this at some point. I'm going to try something real quick. I have in my brain this concept, and I don't have a word for this concept yet. I think I mentioned it yesterday. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold this concept in my brain, and you, with your telepathic whatever, are going to tune into the frequency so you can perceive and get a grasp on this concept that's of this metaphorical ship, right? We don't have a word for this ship yet. But that concept, I'm going to put up on the screen, because in here there's all the mirrors. It's a room of mirrors. It's not a hallway. It's a room full of mirrors. It's a big open space full of mirrors. And so in that room where there's all these mirrors, I'm going to put up a screen. And on that screen, I'm going to project this concept. It may look or feel swirly, like swirly colors. The part to note is the visceral reaction and the emotional stuff that's coming up. In that, like, visceral liminal space of this, like, ooh, where everything's kind of free-falling, where that concept begins to snap and a full picture comes to mind, that's something for you to work on. I'm curious to know what that is for my own, you know, selfish means of investigation, because I'm curious. So, I mean, if you want to, or send it to me, please. But I have a feeling this is going to take some time to comprehend. Because again, there's not words for it yet. But in this space, in absorbing this concept, know that whatever is not aligned with your highest good, or whatever pretends to or extends this false narrative, is going to slip away. And what is going to fall in its place, or what's going to replace it, is going to be that ultimatum, or it's going to be that truth. It's going to be real, and it's going to be uncomfortable, or it's going to be discomfort. And in that key piece of information, when you consciously wake up and you go, oh, I see. And now that you know that, now that you have that concept, you're not going to ever be able to take it away, or you're not going to ever be able to unknow it now at this point. Sit with that one for a little bit. It's a very odd way to kind of disseminate information that feels right and correct for this space, for this context. Intuition blended with common sense. So I can walk with my subjective experience in one hand, and know my emotions, and know my strengths and my weaknesses and my triggers and what calms me. I know thyself. And in the other hand, we can put the objective experience, the things external and irrelevant to my emotional body. The trees are going to turn colors, the leaves are going to fall, it's winter here in this part of the world, and it's getting cold. Matriarchal splendor and authority, intuition blended with common sense, fruitlessness, serenity, understanding, wisdom, education, mother, sister, wife, practicality, businesswoman. That is how you can be receptive to truth. If there is any resistance to truth, objectivity, let's say, there will be vacillation. That's that gray area, right? Vacillating your beliefs and your opinions based on who's listening and what other people, or you think other people will think. Inaction, that's that bypassing, that's that bystander. That's the one who knows the truth but is doing nothing for it and allowing the false narrative to play out, enabling loss of wealth. Eventually everything will kind of like swing back into whatever the things that you've acquired, or the things that aren't in your highest good or aren't in alignment with that truth. They don't stay. They're not permanent. But that could have more to do with like identity, or the material benefits that come along with trying to uphold this false identity, this false narrative. So people are giving you the things, but if you no longer identify with that as an identity, all of those things that are associated with it also go away too. Infertility. It's not so literal, but it's more like you can't come up with anything new by trying to solve things at the same level in which they were created. You know, you can't do the same things over and over again expecting different results. And so that's where the lack of fertility comes into play. Or not wanting to, if you put enough like toxicity into your system, into your body, it's going to prevent your ability to be productive. Infidelity, we mentioned the cheating part, right? And those that are creating the false narrative are cheating the system. Somebody who's creating a false narrative is not going to be honest with you. Lack of concentration. That's the people-pleasing things, or the like, when confronted with the truth, when confronted with reality, that's where you get the or in asking a direct question and asking a specific question. Pay attention to this one, because sometimes you can ask a very specific question, but people will give you a completely different answer, will give you an answer as if you had asked a different question. So it's like, no, I didn't ask, like, what color the sky, like, I know what color the sky is. I'm asking you, what is the sky made up of? Oh, the sky is blue. Yeah, I know the sky is blue, but what is the sky made up of? Oh, there's clouds in the sky. The sky is blue. No, we're not looking at the clouds. We're looking at the ship. Right? So the first person to pull out the microscope or to pull out the lens and to, like, you know, look at the air molecules to figure out the oxygen and hydrogen and nitrogen. Like, there's so many different types of gases. It looks invisible, you know. We can't see the hydrogen molecules, but we know through truth and objectivity that there's hydrogen molecules in the air, or like the water thing, you know. We just see water. We don't see the hydrogen. We don't see the oxygen that bond to form the water. We don't see the molecular components, right? We have to know and trust that that water is hydrogen and it's oxygen. When somebody's coming along and being like, oh, look, Kool-Aid, drink it. And you're like, oh, I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid. Fucking idiot. Frivolity. That's the frivolity part of it. You know, being frivolous. Somebody's handing you Kool-Aid and you're like, oh, cool, I'm gonna drink it. Oh, because so-and-so at the top or so-and-so up here is doing it, we're all gonna do it too. Frivolous, for nothing, for no other reason than like clout or immediate reinforcement, or just like that if you're gonna go get drunk and you're gonna get wasted, you're gonna drink it all, like, it's frivolous. There's no point to that. You become belligerent and completely dissociated from reality, right? Whereas if, like, you sip an aperitif, you're not gonna get wasted, you're not gonna get drunk. It's not going to impair you. Right? It's not frivolous. That's discipline. That's, what's the word I'm looking for there? Modesty. The opposite of frivolousness is modesty. Domineering is the other side of that. The one who's got to be on top, the one who always has to win, is the one that's going to create the narrative. There's the tower. Right? It's going to try and harm and going to try and destroy other people. It's just emotional unintelligence. That's all that is. So in this realm where we're discussing and going into narratives, what is it that you're telling people? Are you telling the truth? How are you today? I'm fine. Great. Are you really? I'm really good at noticing when something is bothering somebody. Oh no, great, I'm fine. Everything's just... And if you're like, hey, I know this is bothering you. Sorry. Okay, I'm ready to wrap this up. Are you ready to wrap this up? I've been diving into another deck and opening up another one. Backfire! False narratives are gonna backfire. What goes around comes around. So trust in that and persevere. And just be honest and be truthful. You know, here's that weird submerging thing with the fish. You know, don't allow the influences or the social pressures around you to get you to do something that doesn't align with your truth. We're the Voyager. We're branching out. We're metamorphosizing. We're transforming here. We're consciously transforming here. We're getting up out of the labyrinth. We're getting up out of the false narrative. We're getting out of this whatever story trap thing that has been laid out for us, that we've been placed in. We're climbing up, and we're getting a bird's eye view, and we're seeing what's really going on. We can see the narrative so that we can depart from it, so that we can exit that false narrative, right? I'm not listening to this false narrative. I'm not playing into this. I'm gonna go over here and go do something real because I transformed, because I can fly now, because I can, I don't have to limit myself. I don't have to limit my beliefs. I don't have to limit my potential to appease other people. You know, I can be myself, emotionally expressive. I can speak my truth. And in speaking my truth, I mean, especially if you haven't for a while, there might be some emotional turmoil there, but there's cleansing there away. There's washing out the things that are not natural. Washing out the parasitic things, washing out the things that are taking your power away. So that you can just flow, you know, you don't have to fit into all of these boxes anymore. People are going to try to change that and persuade you to think differently. False narratives have to do with witchcraft, spells, you know, for spells, and we're spelling, and we're creating these stories or these things to try and project something outside of that is not real, which could be considered a form of witchcraft, i.e. manipulation. Here's that mourning card again, you know, but maybe you don't want to do this, or you don't want to do the work, or you don't want to take the steps because you're mourning, and mourning the loss because you're anticipating, you know, that once this free falls and comes crashing and this goes like this, there's loss, and there's sadness, and you grieve. It's part of the process. You can't just feel happy all the time. If it takes shit to make bliss, then I feel pretty blissfully. And if life's not beautiful without the pain, then I'd rather never even see beauty again. And the people who are the kindest, the people who are the nicest, the most compassionate, who form that connection, are the ones that can sit in that difficulty, who've done that hard work, and who can not be so distracted by that telephone game, you know? I think there's mourning connections and mourning losses because of this telephone game, because other people have created this false narrative, and when you wake up to the false narrative that was created and you realize that you just lost and missed out on important connections, you're going to mourn that loss. Or, you know, when people realize that towards you, they're going to mourn the loss of you, and that's not your problem. that's theirs to deal with. Okay, I'm gonna close this off. Reach out to me if you need. I don't know, go to Venmo if you want. Sweet Unicorn, look up the transformation guide. Do energetic exchanges that way if you want. Engage in some conversation here if you want. Go sit and work through. I don't care. I don't really care what you do with this information once it's not mine. There are people who are going to try and create their own false narratives out of the information that comes through here, but that's fine. I'm educated enough to know my truth. Divine revelations bring life-changing spiritual illumination. Be mindful of those revelations given by the burning bush. That truth will feel like love. It will feel like peace. It will feel like acceptance. It will feel safe. Okay. Anyway, thanks for today. Thanks for showing up. I don't know, maybe we can do this again tomorrow or something. I don't know. It's always just when it feels right, we do it. So, until next time.